You want to know what a real reckoning looks like. Picture this standing on the ridge where your great-grandfather once dreamed the world could be tamed, watching street signs slip beneath water that's rising faster than secrets in a small town. 60, 70 mansions, each one identical, each with that plastic green grass turning into their own private islands in what used to be your family's lake. I remember thinking they probably called it progress, but from up there it looked a whole lot more like karma. They called themselves Azure Point, and their queen was Evelyn Reed, all smiles and ironclad contracts, sitting pretty in a glass tower, while I was halfway around the globe carving ice samples out of the Greenland permafrost. By the time I got back 3 years older, and I'll admit it, pretty damn tired, the only thing waiting in my mailbox was an eviction notice from a woman who'd never set foot in mud deeper than her designer boots. "We're prepared to be generous," she said, as if she was offering charity. I just stared out at what was left of the lake, my lake where I'd learned to skip stones and read the currents with my dad. 70 houses, she told me, a community, as if throwing that word around made the concrete any less cold. The final phase was beautification. She said, her voice that practiced warmth. "You only hear from people selling you something they don't even use. We'll be removing the old pump house insurance liability, you understand. We'll put in an infinity pool." That nearly broke me. I mean, how do you replace a 100-year-old engineering marvel with a hole full of pool noodles? You don't. But they didn't care. The pump house was a relic to them, just more land to flatten a box to check. They had their lawyers, their forms, their confidence. But what Evelyn Reed didn't know, and what nobody on her shiny little island of suburbia knew, was that my great-grandfather wasn't just any old dirt farmer. He was a madman genius who figured out how to put a leash on a force of nature. That brick relic was a lock on an underground river, a control valve built to keep the land from eating itself alive. And me, I'd spent my life learning what he saw. That's why her eviction notice wasn't an ending for me. It was the spark. That afternoon, I drove down the valley tires, humming over gravel that felt like coming home, breathing air thick with pine and sun-baked earth. None of that new development stench of fresh-cut sod. The pump house looked tired, sure slate roof fuzzy with moss bricks, dark as old blood, but it had stood through 100 storms. I still had the key. My dad gave it to me when I left for college, said, "You never know when you'll need to come home." Turns out he was right. Inside, the air was cool, metallic, thick with the kind of oil and ozone smell that makes you think of old railroads and machines built to last. This wasn't some barn full of rusted tools. This was a control room, a cathedral of copper and gears. There was a wall-sized slate map of the valley, every curve and ridge etched by handpipes, thick as your arm, arcing through the walls, to a machine that looked like it could swallow a man whole. And tucked in a hidden box, untouched for decades, 3 leather-bound journals. My great-grandfather's initials, bold and proud, J.H. Hayes. I sat in the dusty light and read. For 3 days I barely left. I lived off protein bars and bad coffee, my jacket for a bed, just me and a ghost, teaching me how the world really works. Diagrams, equations, notations about pressure, flow, and something else, an obsession with balance, with keeping something at bay. At first, I thought it was about crops, drought, the usual old-timer paranoia. But then I saw the maps, his and then mine, thanks to a satellite laptop and a U.S. Geological Survey overlay. My great-grandfather had mapped a crack in the earth, a fault line dormant for 1,000 years, right under the lakebed. You ever feel a chill that has nothing to do with the weather? That's what I felt when I realized he hadn't just built a dam for the land, he'd built a safety valve for the whole valley. The lake, the pump house, all of it a pressure regulator to keep the fault line asleep. And those 70 houses with their deep concrete foundations, their infinity pools, their perfect lawns, they were sitting on a trigger. That's when the game changed. It wasn't about saving my land anymore. It was about saving everybody, even the folks who'd called me a recluse and a troublemaker in the papers. I knew I needed help, so I tracked down Chloe Vance, a reporter with a knack for sniffing out corruption. We met in a diner straight out of the 70s, vinyl booths, burned coffee, the kind of place Evelyn Reed wouldn't be caught dead in. Chloe was sharp skeptical, but when I showed her the maps and journals, something shifted. "If you're right," she said, "this isn't just negligence. This is fraud." Chloe brought in a wild card, Arthur Jenkins, the old county surveyor forced into retirement when he got too nosy about Azure Point's land grants. Arthur looked like a man who slept with one eye open and trusted no one, but he had what we needed, an old survey, one that marked the fault line clear as day. The copy filed by Evelyn Reed's company, magically clean, no fault line, no risk. Suddenly we had a triangle of evidence: my great-grandfather's journals, Arthur's suppressed survey, and my seismic data. But you know how it goes. Truth is, slow bulldozers are fast. Every tactic they had, they used. Newspapers smeared me as unstable. Arthur got city inspectors breathing down his neck. Chloe's boss tried to pull her off the story. They watched my house-parked SUVs where I could see them, left messages that weren't threats but might as well have been. My own sister called scared, telling me maybe I should just walk away. But I couldn't. Not when I saw the storm coming, a real one, not a metaphor. An atmospheric river was headed for the valley, the kind of rain that fills every low spot and cracks open the earth. It was due to hit just hours before the scheduled demolition. Suddenly, the timeline went from weeks to hours. I called Arthur, had him report a potential dam failure risk to the county just to get it on the record. Called Chloe, told her to bring her camera to the ridge. Then the storm broke, and with it all hell. Evelyn's security showed up first, big guys in black SUVs yelling that I was trespassing on my own land. I slammed the old oak door through the deadbolt and ran through the final checklist in my great-grandfather's journal. Sequential activation. Pressure balance. This was it. The moment a century in the making. Rain hammered the roof. The levers moved with a resistance that felt like it was coming from the earth itself. Gauges crept up, needles quivered. When the main sluice lever dropped, the whole valley seemed to sigh. Outside, water bubbled up through cracks in the street. Drains began to run backwards. In minutes, the manicured lawns and cul-de-sacs of Azure Point were islands in a rising lake. I stepped into the storm, the guards scrambling their boots, sinking in the mud. The water rose, swallowing driveways, turning roads into rivers. Chloe caught it all on film. Her story would topple a company. By morning, when the sun hit the water, the valley was reborn. A lake blue and deep, with the rooftops of 70 houses breaking the surface like a row of tombstones. The fallout was swift. Evelyn's empire collapsed under the weight of fraud. Wire fraud, insurance fraud. Her company bankrupted by lawsuits from homeowners who'd been sold a lie. Arthur, Chloe, even the valley itself, they all got a second chance. The birds came back, the fish too, the water clearing as the months passed. We set up a trust, used the lawsuit money to study and protect the valley, to make sure nobody ever tried to tame what they didn't understand again. Now I spend my evenings drifting over the water in a small boat right above where Evelyn's office once stood. All that's left is water and memory, and maybe, if you listen close enough, the voice of a stubborn old man who knew that the land always remembers. That no matter how you try to bury the truth, it finds a way to the surface. So here's my question to you: when it all comes down, whose side are you on? The spreadsheet visionaries or the ghost who built the world beneath your feet? Drop a comment. Tell me where you stand. What would you have done if you were me? You know what I mean?